So when lighting the candles, I noticed Jason's shirt in the back. It says, "Do me a favor and stop talking." And the ironic thing is, I believe he has been trained in pastoral care. And one of the first things they teach you as a pastoral caregiver is to stop talking and start listening. So I don't know if this was intentional or not, but it's pretty awesome. So obviously today our topic is lay pastoral care. And we're talking about this particularly now, particularly today. It's because coming up is a wonderful opportunity to enhance the terrific care activities of our congregation. And it's by starting something called a lay pastoral care program, which is a common and best practice in Unitarian Universalist and other congregations. So our reading today will provide some introductory information on lay pastoral care. And after I read the reading, our own Laurel Rouse will share a reflection on her personal experiences as a lay pastoral care associate in the Unitarian Universalist Church congregation in Tampa, Florida. And then after Laurel, I will provide more information on how lay pastoral care programs work and more about the spiritual aspect of this type of care. So even if the giving or receiving of pastoral care is not an interest or a need for you at this time, you will still be able to see how it can play a big role in the ongoing care and spiritual growth of our church community. So this reading is from a book. It's a little bit instructional. The book is called A Ministry of Presence, Organizing, Training, and Supervising Lay Pastoral Care Providers in Liberal Religious Faith Communities. And it's written by a UU minister named Dennis Meacham. Dennis says, "In one form or another, it is an often repeated scenario. A congregant suffers the loss of a loved one and receives quick and heartfelt attention from the minister and fellow church members. Soon, however, the congregant is left to a very private and often prolonged grief as the pastor and other church members return to the routines of their lives and the attention demanded by the challenges of daily living. Parishioners can fall off the church community's radar screen, sometimes in pain or distress, and when their church doesn't maintain contact with them, they may feel compelled to look elsewhere for spiritual healing. Parish ministers are expected to respond to the spiritual needs of each and every parishioner, but overburdened by other duties, they can find themselves in a losing battle." He continues, "I have learned through personal experience that a well-organized, trained, and supervised cadre of lay ministers can ensure that no member of a congregation of any size falls through the cracks. As I have gone around the country doing workshops on lay pastoral care, I've encountered many versions of lay ministry in general and lay pastoral care specifically, programs that differed in organization, goals, training, supervision, and effectiveness. In one scenario, there is a small lay ministry team trying to do it all, with lay volunteers bravely calling upon a hodgepodge of competencies to carry out their pastoral care mission in the congregation. It is my experience that many lay pastoral care programs, while well-intended, function nowhere near the level that would provide useful to all the congregants and allow the parish minister to feel confident that everyone who needs attention and care is receiving it." He continues, "My travels have encouraged me to present an expanded model of lay pastoral care. This new vision of lay pastoral care is an ambitious one, both in terms of the expectations it places on its volunteer participants and the level of organization, training, and support required for participants to succeed and flourish in their mission. It is grounded in the best practices of pastoral care taught in seminaries and theological schools throughout the country, some simple but profound understandings of modern clinical psychology, the healing wisdom and compassionate care of others that is central to the teaching of all the world's religions, and the more sophisticated lay pastoral care programs that are the hallmarks of lay ministries in several Christian denominations. Lay ministry encompasses two categories of programs. The first includes any program that provides support to congregants without any expectation of repeated contact with a particular person. So providing rides for seniors or meals for convalescing members, helping new members acclimate to the church community, or leading support groups all fall into this category. The second category, which is the one we're focusing on today, encompasses just one single activity. That is provision of pastoral care by one church member to a single other church member for as long as circumstances require. Any lay ministry program can prove critically important to the life of a church, but providing compassionate and effective pastoral care requires a greater commitment on the part of the volunteer in time, ongoing training, and supervision. End quote. And Laurel Rouse has been one of these volunteers this author is talking about. And the volunteers are often called lay pastoral care associates. And now I'd like to invite Laurel up to share her reflections about her experiences doing this important volunteer work.
Thanks, Reverend Chris. So we care about one another in this community, in this UU Church of Corpus Christi community. Lay pastoral care is a type of lay ministry, as Reverend Chris was mentioning, that can strengthen the bonds of a church community and reach out to folks in that community who are going through a difficult time. I was part of the lay pastoral care team at the UU Church in Tampa when they started their program about 2.5 years ago. I was a part of the program for 1 year prior to moving from Florida here to Corpus Christi. The team went through a formal training and met once per month with the minister to check in about the program. I witnessed the new lay pastoral care program at the UU Church in Tampa provide compassionate support to individuals and to the congregation as a whole. For example, one member of the lay pastoral care team visited a congregant in the hospital where the minister was unable to visit that congregant due to schedule. In another situation of great loss and grieving for the whole community, a teenage member of the community passed away unexpectedly. I feel that the lay pastoral care team was provided as positive support to the congregation and supported the minister in her ministry during this time. One minister cannot be present to each person in a congregation on an individual level during a time such as that one of great loss. Members of the lay pastoral care team also supported one another. Becoming part of a new lay pastoral care team at U2C3 does not require you to have a certain professional background. You must go through the training. And additionally, serving as a lay pastoral care associate requires good listening skills and compassion. If you have interest in this new program, please contact Reverend Chris to sign up for the training. I look forward to the gifts that this program will give to this community.
Yay! So one of the major goals of a formal lay pastoral care program is to extend the pastoral reach of the minister. And I think that's a good way to differentiate the lay pastoral care role from that of other caring activities. For instance, the visits I do as a minister usually involve a lot of listening and some talking, and maybe some praying or ritual or sitting in silence, depending on what the congregant needs. My activities don't usually entail casseroles, something you should all be thankful for. They don't usually entail rides or other more concrete helping activities like those performed by our Compassionate Living team, and which will continue to be performed by our Compassionate Living team. Lay pastoral care associates are an extension of the type of care I would provide if I could clone myself several times over. So naturally, these associates would fall under the supervision of the minister, who is responsible for ongoing training and support of the associates on their path of caring for others. Another hallmark of lay pastoral care programs is the one-on-one, consistent, personal, ongoing relationship between the associate and the one congregant in their care. And this care continues on a regular basis until that support is no longer needed. This caring relationship is confidential, and the minister is typically the only other person who knows about it. No one else knows that a particular person is in care, let alone what they are discussing with their lay pastoral care associate. This type of confidentiality is imperative to build trust, right? If you're going to talk about your deepest fears, your toughest problems, it has to be held in confidence among the fewest people possible. It really is the relationship, more so than services, that are the key in lay pastoral care. But if a person in lay pastoral care does need services, these needs can easily be communicated to a committee that provides these services. And often committees that provide the services are also very helpful in identifying people who can benefit from lay pastoral care. So to paint a fuller picture, I'll share with you Dennis Meacham's who, what, how, and whys of lay pastoral care. So, basic definition, what is it? Pastoral care involves working closely with an individual to support them in securing their well-being and meeting their spiritual needs, often for those who are experiencing some type of difficult situation or loss in their lives. It is providing selfless, caring, and accepting presence to another. Pastoral care involves active listening and reflecting back what one is hearing and asking questions. It is not advice giving and it is not problem solving. I don't know if anyone here has experienced getting some advice that wasn't really asked for. Everyone loves that, right? Moving on to the who. Who should consider doing pastoral care? And of course, there are certain personality characteristics that a person should possess to take on this role. Because of its sensitive nature, the role is usually filled through a screening and selection process. But that should really not deter anybody who has an interest, because what is needed is a diversity of ages and genders and life experiences. Quiet people often make the best lay pastoral care people because they are accustomed to listening and not talking. Have you ever noticed that there are certain people in your life whose personality and way of being makes you feel comfortable and listened to when you're around them? Think about those people in your life. If any of them are in the congregation, please tell them that they need to become a lay pastoral care associate, okay? Other attributes necessary to do this work are emotional stability. You can't really help someone else if you're in need of help yourself. A strong sense of empathy, the readiness to walk in another's shoes, the ability to be fully present to another in times of difficulty. Now, this isn't fully present 24/7 with them. It is when with them, fully present to them and their needs. Lay pastoral care associates receive training in active listening, which is a totally different kind of listening than we practice in our daily lives. Another important characteristic is being non-judgmental and having humility. Pastoral care providers must be able to put down their own egos, their own opinions, and their own ideas, and simply reflect what a person in care is saying, what they're expressing, so that they are able to process their own feelings and determine their own actions. And finally, the ability to keep deep confidences is crucial. So let's talk about the why. In addition to spreading the reach of the minister, lay pastoral care associates are often approached by people who don't think their problem is big enough to bother the minister with, which really isn't true, by the way, or might be comfortable speaking to someone else, someone of a different gender, of a different age group. So that's another way it expands the reach. Additional eyes and ears in identifying those who may need care is very helpful. Another why of pastoral care is that it is a religious calling. You know, if we believe in the worth and dignity of every human being, and if we believe in compassion, how we treat each other and how we care for one another, starting right here, are those beliefs being put into action. So Dennis Meacham says, the promise we make in embracing a lay pastoral care program is as meaningful a commitment as a human being can make. We accept responsibility for the well-being of every person in our church. No one who seeks it will go without our compassionate concern and support. If we truly believe in the worth and dignity of every person, we are obliged to consider the needs, the very local needs of our fellow congregants. Finally, there's one more reason why we should do lay pastoral care. Life offers us no greater gift than the opportunity to care for one another. The ministry of lay pastoral care is a path to an ever deepening personal spiritual growth, the spiritual practice of reaching out to others. And this type of care is spiritually transformative, not just for the people receiving it, but for the people giving it as well. It's a way to put our values into action. It's a way to deepen relationships and increase the culture of caring within the congregation. So as Laurel said, if any of this sounds intriguing to you, please attend our lay pastoral care associate training coming up on Saturday, April 13th from 1 to 5 p.m. There is no obligation to become a lay pastoral care associate by taking the training. So if you're just the least teeny weeny bit curious, I encourage you to sign up. At the very least, you will probably learn some new skills that can be applied to your own personal relationships, all for free. And that is absolutely true. A woman who is in my cohort when I did clinical pastoral education, that's the chaplaincy, the pastoral care training that ministers are often required to take. A woman in my cohort was there because her husband, they went to seminary together as a couple. Her husband had voluntarily taken clinical pastoral education, and she said it improved their marriage because he listened and he was empathetic and he was changed for the better. So she thought, now I have to take this too. True story. And I thought I'd close telling you a little bit about one of my own stories as a chaplain, as a trainee chaplain working in pastoral care in a hospital. What happens in hospitals when people need to be taken off of life support? The medical staff is always perplexed why people are reluctant to do it, right? It doesn't really match their timeline. Well, they gotta move on. So when there's a resistance from a family member about this issue, what do? They call a chaplain to convince the family member that this is what must happen. So I answered one of those calls. It's pretty typical, and there are usually at least a couple of reasons why people don't want to do this or are resistant. Number one, they're not ready to let go, right? Number two, a lot of religions frown upon even removing life support. So these are, very difficult things for people to grapple with. So I was called to speak to a niece whose aunt was in the ICU, and the medical team had recommended that her life support be discontinued. And the niece and her brother, who are the legal people responsible, were completely overwhelmed by this news. It was some hours later, I managed to catch up with the niece and talk to her. She was in a little meeting room with a bunch of what I could tell were church ladies. You just know church ladies when you see them. They were either from her church or from her aunt's church, but I knew. So I thought, and they probably were church ladies who were a little differently theologically from me, I was guessing. So I thought, I'll see if she wants to talk to me, after all this time with the church ladies. And she did, and she was very receptive. So I started out, I just asked her about her aunt. And she painted this beautiful picture, this beautiful story. We were in Richmond, Virginia. Her aunt lived in Washington, D.C. She was the sophisticated, big city, never married, no children, but always had a boyfriend aunt who had an apartment where she played Billie Holiday and jazz and gave her niece her first jewelry and makeup and did all of the girly things with her. I was struck, I was involved. I wanted this aunt, you know? But you could see the love and the relationship and how special it was. And I just kind of reflected this back to her. I didn't really say a whole lot. And we just talked about her aunt, and we eventually got to maybe what her aunt might feel in this situation and what her aunt might feel would be the right thing to do. So as in many chaplaincy visits, you leave not having any clue as to if you did any good in the world at all. But I went on with the day ended, and I left the hospital and headed towards the parking garage. And I ran into this woman. She came up to me, and she hugged me, and she said, thank you, your words. Thank you, thank you. And the ironic thing was, it wasn't my words. It was her words reflected back through me. So that, I think, is one of the best examples I can give of what pastoral care is. It's not solving problems, it's not giving advice. It's just being present and listening and validating what you are hearing. So to close today, I have a few more words from Dennis Meacham that apply way beyond pastoral care. They kind of apply to life in general. Our challenge as people of faith is to overcome our personal barriers to empathetic concern and support for our fellow human beings. These barriers can be discovered through introspection. If our hearts are full of anger, resentment, envy, or fear, it is difficult to be concerned about others. Yet simply recognizing such feelings in ourselves tells us much about how those in distress are feeling. In this recognition of the commonality of suffering, we can begin to let go of our own distress, let go of our sense that our hurt is unique, and begin to understand in what ways we need to treat others to relieve the pain and suffering that are unavoidable aspects of the human condition. By empathizing, we move our attention from ourselves to the other. Such empathy can begin to bring us a measure of serenity and strength. Empathy is transformative in its impact on our well-being. May it be so, and blessed be.